Hello, and welcome to episode number 367 of the Board Game Podcast. Could we just be the Board Game Podcast?
The
it's funny,
Board Game Podcast.
I was excited to call us the Board Game Hotcast because it's so hot. The Board Game Barrage Podcast. This is a podcast about board games. The latest hotness. Oh, the word hot's in it.
Yeah.
I didn't even plan for it. And how to have fun with your friends, even with your losing. I'm here with my hot friends, Neelan and Mark.
Hello.
Hot in multiple ways.
Hot in all the right ways. I am only hot in one way. We'll leave you to determine that. You don't know how hot it is in this room. Today on the Board Game Barrage Hotcast, we are going to be covering... It's hard to say. It's hard to say where my mind is at, but we're going to be covering it later. Where the hobby's at, where we're at with the hobby, where I'm at with the hobby, the rise of people playing Mahjong and backgammon and chess, the coworkers incessantly saying, Kellen, join us on chess.com. But before we do that, we're going to cover the latest hobbyist games. Neelan is going to take... yeah. Chess Joker. I have Chess Joker by Mr. Classic Carl. I haven't played it yet, unfortunately. But before we do that, we're going to cover the hobbyist games that we've been playing. Neelan's going to take us through Wingspan Pocket. I will talk about Greylune. And Mark will hit us with the latest Mr. Feld Marrakesh. Kesh? There's like 7 of these. Marrakesh.
Yeah. More about that later.
But more about that when we get to him. Neelan, kick us off with some birds.
Yeah, so Wingspan Pocket, as the name, I guess, implies, is like a small, tiny version of Wingspan. So this is designed again by Elizabeth Hargrave, published by Stonemaier Games. And if you're not familiar with Wingspan, here's Wingspan Pocket, basically, which is going to sound very, very familiar if you are familiar with Wingspan. But like basically, you have this giant deck of bird cards, and those birds have abilities at the bottom of them. They have point values on them. They cost a certain amount of food or eggs in the top left. And effectively, the core system of Wingspan is you are acquiring food, putting birds out into your nest, and then running through all of the powers of your birds from left to right. So you're kind of just creating this sort of like, a factory line engine type thing. It is a very light engine builder. In the context of Wingspan Pocket specifically, what used to have been like 3 or 4 rows, I forget, of specific bird cards with specific habitats is now reduced to just 1. So you still have this giant deck of cards, very largely similar in that way. You have 1 row of birds. On your turn, you're either going to draw cards from the array, you're going to play birds to your nest, or you're going to lay eggs, which are used either as points at the end of the game or to power some other abilities or pay for costs for future birds. Then you just run through all of your bird cards left to right. Some of them are kind of passive powers. Some of them have active abilities like collect another card from the array, get food, tuck something under here, go hunting. So again, some of these systems will sound familiar if you've played Wingspan. A lot of them are represented here. The game ends once someone has 6 birds in their nest, and then whoever has the most points wins. Points being points on birds, points on eggs, tucked cards, all of that jazz. That is really kind of the whole game. The one streamlining that this does is quite different from base Wingspan, is the food is just on the back of the bird cards. So what you have are these 4 decks of cards face down, which have food prints in their backs, and then the birds come into the array from those decks face up. So every time you're taking cards from the array, you're choosing whether just to take it as food and keep it face down in your tableau as food, or taking it as a bird to put in your reserve face up as a bird. You never really flip them back to front. It's just kind of a way to like double deal on these cards. So you're never seeing one or the other in a single game. But that's kind of it. It is still kind of the core, I think, of what makes Wingspan very popular, which is very satisfying when you have this lineup of cards to run through them all and just like watch your little engine firing off. It gives you the opportunities through like a fair amount of cards to get neat little combos going. Like, I'm going to be the person that like wants to collect fish in particular because all of my abilities benefit from fish, or I reduce the cost of my fish now are wild, and then I'm going to use all of those abilities, then tuck a bunch of things or lay a bunch of eggs so that you're just assembling a lot of points by the end of it. The most crucial point I want to say about this game is it takes about 15 to 20 minutes to play. It is like blisteringly fast. It also just like it comes in this tiny box. I personally think that this gets like 80 to 90% of what I want from Wingspan, which to be fair is a game I like but don't love. But it gets that down in like a third of the time, a fraction of the rules, In a way that I actually almost feel like if I were to like grab for one of these to play, I would probably go for Wingspan Pocket like most of the time. It's that much of a good distillation in like a fraction of the rule set in the time.
I'd heard that this game was released. I didn't really know anything about it. And I'm looking at a comparison here of the size of the boxes. I'm sort of interested in both ways that this is a pocket game, because the box is clearly smaller, much smaller, and you're saying it's a much faster game. When I heard Wingspan Pocket, I thought they were going to distill it to like a 52 card situation, but you're saying that this is a fairly big deck of cards. This is not something, when I hear pocket, I assume like you could kind of play it on a small table or even be like, but this is like a full-fledged kind of game in terms of like table space.
It's definitely not quite what you're imagining, maybe in terms of like, it's not like a travel game. It's not like a wallet-sized game you can like break out in the bar or anything like that. But it's also not. Like everyone just needs like a row of cards in front of them in a reserve. As much space as you would need for your average, I would say, it's funny because I was going to say small box card game, but that's maybe a little bit unfair. It's not exactly that compact, but it's certainly like, but a small card game.
I think the photos you're looking at on BGG are made by Stegmaier very intentionally to make it seem bigger than it is.
Fuller.
I don't mean that in any like negative way. Like I'm looking at this image and I'm like, I played this game yesterday and it does not like, it looks like it's taking up the whole table. Yeah, it does not. Yeah. Everyone has one row. There are 4 decks you're drawing from, and then there's a pile of eggs. That's it.
Sure.
And the game state, by the way, in this single image, once someone has 6 birds, the game is over.
I see.
So this is an end game state for a 4-player game dropped.
Yeah.
It isn't like a 52 card deck thing, and the eggs, the eggs are the best part, and that probably would take up a 52 deck card size slot.
This certainly gives me Race for the Galaxy sort of feelings in terms of like building an array and paying for cards with kind of cards-ish. Although I'm paying with a different kind of currency that's on the back of the cards, but generally.
We had just been talking about that, so it was fun to see that as a mechanism here. I was having a little bit of trouble because each card had a bird underneath it, and I really wanted to look at the bird, but like it didn't matter because once I had picked up the card as a worm, it was a worm. It was also a bird underneath it, a unique special bird that I could look at, but Neelan kept telling me I could not do that.
No access to that bird underneath, to be clear.
Oh, so when you draft a card, you draft it either as one or the other. You cannot decide to use it as currency.
Well, it's more specific than that, right? Which is that it is either face down on the table or it is face up on the table, right? So when you're drafting it, you're just taking it the face. Like technically, the other side of the card does not exist in your game state. You know? Like
this is bird eraser. This is what he was doing the whole game night when I kept trying to look at my birds that were not. Yeah. Well, and then you don't really have a hand, which I was struggling with because you can't, because it's a reserve. So your hand is just face up in front of you because otherwise you'd get confused.
Right. You'd be tempted to flip them.
You'd be tempted to look at the bird that you don't have.
Right.
I think this is one that you should probably check out, Mark. It definitely seems like it's in your wheelhouse of games you like. But I also don't want to sort of gloss over the fact that this is still kind of lighter Wingspan-ier in the sense that sometimes it does feel like, okay, I wish there was a little bit more strategy combo-iness to this. I still think it very much gets by. I don't mean this as a negative. It gets by on the charm of how lovely this art. And all of that is very faithfully preserved. This presentationally is in the same level of quality as Wingspan, just in a smaller box.
Okay.
But yeah, I was pretty impressed by it. That is Wingspan Pocket by Elizabeth Hargrave.
And in case you're wondering, Mark, the texture of the rule book is the same across all of Stegmaier's games. You know, that feel that he has?
Thank God.
That's his signature. You know what I mean? That's sort of what he'll leave behind.
Yeah.
That's how you know, that it's a Stonemaier game. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, I am going to be covering Greylune. The story of how we got Greylune is a mystery to me. I had it as my most anticipated game coming into Gen Con out of Pandasaurus. Pandasaurus did not listen to our podcast and sent the game directly to Mark Basada's house. And then I accused Mark Basada of hearing my description of Greylune and requesting it, and I felt like I had been betrayed.
I was so wrapped by your description. I was like, I got to cut the line and grab this from him.
And I'm like, wow, I'm good at this. And then Mark graciously shipped it directly to me. Neelan and I have played Greylune and wanted to talk about it. Greylune is a very tight Euro bidding sort of game that is based or almost entirely a redo of an old game called Spirium that I used to play back in the day. The central conceit of the game is that you're adventurers. I guess it does matter. It does matter. It
does,
really
actually.
matters.
Actually, more than a lot of Euro games. It kind of does, yeah.
You are an adventurer who can go out and slay monsters and encounters and then tell tales of your adventures to score more victory points, or you can be like me and be a consumer and become a merchant and just buy items and buy more items for your items. And so you are visiting buildings, you're buying items, you're recruiting companions, all in a sort of magical potions and wizard staffs sort of world. But this is a 60 to 90 minute tight Euro game affair where the central mechanic is based around a 3x3 grid of those companions, buildings, and items. And you are, in the spring, you are placing workers between cards on the grid, sort of indicating that you either want to use those buildings, acquire those items, or you think they'll be popular spots because this is also how you get money. So everyone has 3 adventurers, workers at the beginning, and they say place them out. And then you, in the summer, pull them off. And when you pull them off, that's either you saying, I want to buy this building, or it's you saying, I want to get money. But the deep twist is that the cost of the building is equal to all the workers left around it, plus its cost. Buildings have no cost, but items have their own cost. So if everyone really wants this potion, it's going to be very expensive. But if you're the first one in the summer phase, you can also pull off your worker just to get money. And so it has this very weird economy where everyone is hotly contesting basically everything. The cost of that thing is going down and down throughout the summer because as people pull off their workers, it's getting cheaper. And so you're playing a game of chicken basically on every turn. Is this potion worth 7 coins to Neelan? Is this potion worth 6 coins to Neelan? I will buy the potion at 5 coins before Neelan is going to buy it at 4. So you're doing worker placement, but like it's tactical. I think it's more tactical than you might expect. Couple that with the other main, I think, interesting system in the game, which is that you can decide when to move on from placing these workers to activating and using them in summer. And so you're constantly getting gotcha'd by the next player who is like, actually, I'm moving on into the summer and I'm pulling a worker right now and buying that companion and really sort of upsetting the plan that you have put in place. That is the main system, the 3x3 grid. There's winter, spring, summer, fall. There's 5 years of the game. There's escalating buildings and companions and items. The other main system in the game is these adventures that you go on or encounters on the left side of the board where you have a series of requirements where you have to have 4 magic power to slay the monster, or you have to spend 4 gold. And then that gives you an immediate benefit, but it also gives you a card that you can use to tell tales of your quests to score even more points. So it did end up in the game that we played, Neelan and Brandon were very focused on this part of the board, and I had become a hoarder of items. All strategies were relevant. I almost won. I lost by 1 point. That was very sad. I really enjoyed this. All of your decisions are really tight, and I kept thinking of the word concentric, but I don't think that word means what I think it means. It's like they're all interlocked in a way that you can't like really get to it. All the systems are very familiar, but then you put them together and you're like, I have no idea how to do well at what I'm doing in here. Neelan, what did you think of Greylune?
Yeah, I really like this. I think the reason I sort of was saying that, like, I think it's like so tightly connected to the theme is that it is one of those things where it's like I was wondering in the end, like, how would this even work in Spirium, where it's like you have this system where you're adventuring down the road to do these quests and get these monsters and tell these tales, and those are fun little systems, but they're also quite thematically strong. And the actual simple answer is none of that was in Spirium, but like that part of the game, that sort of like adventuring stuff, like was really neat. Like you're sort of like building up your board over time using this main like worker placement system, and then you're going to see how far down this adventuring road you can get to go on these bigger and better quests before other people can, because there's a limited number of these cards per round. Once you take one, it goes away. So there is this constant tension of like, in addition to, am I going to sort of pull off my worker at the right time to get the money or buy the thing before someone else? Can I perhaps get the movement I need to go on this adventure and finish this quest before Brandon does, which was often the case in like our game where Brandon and I were competing for those most heatedly. So yeah, I think there are some very good points of tension in this game, which like really characterize, like, I'm going to say like this era of Euro games, like the 2000s, 2010s era Euro games, which I kind of felt was really, really, really solid. It is definitely at times quite, as Kellen said, tactical and reactionary, where a lot of what you're doing is determined by how someone like does their turn preceding you. But it definitely behooves you to have an idea for what you're trying to go in a given round and like try to execute that as best as you can. And yeah, the tension between those two things of worrying very much what like another player is going to do while trying to like plan your adventures and storytelling and all of that jazz. I liked it. It's good. It's very compact as well. Nice, relatively small box for like this type of weight of Eurogame as well.
Yes, production is lovely. Box is great. I would say the rule book is mid to bad. There are rules only in the like appendix section that I didn't even read, but then realized I had to read based on forum posts. So there are things printed on the board that are also not explained in the rules. Like if you get more than you're increasing your strength and magic, and if you increase your strength and magic above 5, you just get a victory point instead of. I don't believe that's written in the rule book.
No, it doesn't seem.
I will say that the more you know the cards, the better off you're going to be in terms of these graduated decks. Not every card is used in every game, but there is a little bit of like every round, we're having to reread what these 9 cards do. I do think the iconography is strong. I would not say there was anything I think I'm bad at iconography. More so than you guys, because about like a quarter of the way into the game, Nealon and Brandon were like, okay, we get the iconography. And I'm like, no, we're going to keep looking up these cards so that I know what they do.
That is something I've always mentioned is a pet peeve of mine, is when you just don't have the text printed on the cards. I do think the advantage that this game has, right, is that you're seeing like 95% of those cards in your first game. So every subsequent game, you would just know all the cards and what they do.
Yep, Mark, I think you would like this. I think you should play it, certainly.
I like the idea of this tactical kind of on your feet kind of auction worker placement system where you're trying to figure out, can I hold off one more round or do I need to snag it now at this like inflated price? Kellen, you played Spirium, the game this is based on, more than any of us. I know it's probably been a while, but you sort of agree with Nealon's take that the additions are positive? Like this is if you're going to play one of the two, it's worth it to deal with the extra rules or extra whatever versus the stripped down Spirium?
I think that probably.
Yeah.
It's been so long that
sure.
I wouldn't want to like... I remember Spirium just feeling like the hell is going on here? Like, it's so weird.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, learning Greylune, even as someone who's played thousands of board games, I still had a little bit of the hell is going on here.
Sure.
I don't know. Like, once you're one round into it, that feeling is gone.
Yeah.
But it's still just like, how does all this add up into...
I get that.
But that's also, like, perhaps the very best feeling, right?
Yeah.
To be just a remix of other mechanisms, and yet there's this central thing that makes it feel like its own beast. So
yeah.
I think a really wonderful job of a re-implementation. So I'm excited to see how this one is received in the larger marketplace.
If it's anything at all, like, looking at Spirium, like, hurts me now, like, from a production art standpoint and just theme, it's like, it's so not there by comparison to Greylune. So I don't know. I don't know how much that matters to people that aren't me, but it would be very hard for me to like say at this point play Spirium over Greylune. I mean, obviously, despite the fact that it's an older, probably easier to acquire game and cheaper, but yeah.
So that is Greylune from Pandasaurus Games. That was a review copy. I would say sent to me. It wasn't sent to me. It was sent to Mark Posada. Mark Posada sent it to me. So if you think I'm biased, I am. I love Mark Posada.
That's true.
Mark, what do you got for us?
So before I get into my review of Stefan Feld's Marrakesh, which I'll get to soon, I'd say that the first thing, and Kellen sort of touched on this earlier, that I found interesting about this game, before we even got to the table, before we started learning it, was its name, Marrakesh. That's because there are 3 distinct, relatively popular games, all named Marrakesh, although I think they have small changes to the way they spell the city's name, all of which I played. There's this pretty interesting one from 96, which is like an economic game about trying to get customers to line up in a certain way to visit your booths at a market, which I've always liked. There's the one from 2007 that I think is probably, before this game, maybe it still is, the most popular of the Marrakesh titled games. One that I think that we played a mega-sized version of at Dice Tower West with the little carpets where you're
Yep.
Your rug makers, and this game is like known for having these little carpets that you're laying down and trying to have the most visible of your color. And then there's this one, the relatively big release from Stefan Feld as part of his City series of games from 2022. So this got me thinking about which cities are the most popular titles for board games. So let's play a quick game. I got this set up. So we're doing a quick game to see if you guys can guess.
Wow.
Okay, I got the top 9. And so there are games where the city is mentioned, but it's not the entire title. I'm talking about games where the entire title of the game is a city's name. I've got the top 9. You guys get 2 strikes. If you miss twice, then you're out. So go ahead, give me the top 9 cities that are titles for games.
But the only thing in the title is the city name.
That's right.
Interesting.
I mean, New York City? It's gotta be. Am I already going to get striked? That's a final guess.
You're already getting striked.
Oh my God. You're out of your mind.
Gosh, it's funny because like now I'm sort of forcing myself to think of what are the games I know. But I'll just say London.
London is number 1 answer.
Oh, okay, sure.
What the
But that's so funny because I can only think of one game named London, which, like the Wallace one, right?
There are a couple more called London also.
Interesting.
Per this list, as this list would tell you.
My pet theory is that board games are more popular in places with weather.
Okay. Ergo,
So that might draft onto this. Well, Marrakesh. So
Marrakesh is number 8.
Boom.
Got it.
Number 8.
That's kind of an easy one, though, considering what we've been doing.
Paris is probably a
Paris
safe
is number
bet.
2.
Okay,
My God.
there we go.
Neil, stop being a tryhard.
I'm actually shocked that New York is in the top 9 because I think that would have been my third guess, honestly.
Amsterdam?
You've struck out
What?
on this 2-strike system. The top 9 are number 9, Istanbul, then 8, Marrakesh, Tokyo, Barcelona, Berlin, Venice, and variants in how you spell Venice. Rome or Roma is number 3, and then 2, Paris, 1, London.
Right, makes sense.
Anyway, let's get back to this Marrakesh, again designed by Stefan Feld in 2022 as part of his, I think, ongoing City series of games. For those who aren't familiar with this, and as you can probably tell, I'm not 100% sure about where this is at, but these are a number of games designed by Feld and released by Queen Games, most of which have been re-implementations of previous and sometimes out of print designed by Feld. For example, there's Hamburg, which is a redesign of Bruges, which I've played. There's Amsterdam, which is a redesign of the long out of print Macau. I guess 7 of the games in this line are actually re-implementations. Marrakesh, the one I'm talking about here, is not. It is a brand new design by Feld for the City series. And in many ways, it feels like something of a magnum opus of the point salad style of games that he's so famous for. So again, for those who are unfamiliar, games that are point salads are ones where everything you do generally gives you some number of points, usually a small number of points. And the idea is usually to be the most efficient over the course of the game to wind up with the most points at the end. But getting back to this Marrakesh, the first harkening back to a previous design of a previous Feld game that you might notice when you have this game set up is the Cube Tower, which Feld first used in Amerigo and features prominently here in Marrakesh. More about that in a second, but other things you'll definitely notice is the sheer size of this game. Now, another thing I need to specify here is I played the Essentials, I think, edition, which I think is a regular edition of the game. I'm pretty sure with many of the games in this City series, there were like multiple editions. I've seen pictures of the deluxe edition of this game, and it's just like an absolute massive table hog. This one was smaller, but still quite sprawling and filled with pieces. There were a ton of cardboard shits. There are a ton of these wooden pieces. It is a game that is chock full of components. So how does Marrakesh work?
There's a Marrakesh Classic Special Edition,
right?
Marrakesh, and then a Marrakesh Essential Edition. So which one are you talking about?
Whatever the cheapest, I think it's the most basic edition. I think it's the Essential Edition, I think is the one we played.
I literally have a copy of this on my shelf and have no idea which version it is.
Oh, that's funny. If it's in color, it's probably the Essential Edition. The deluxe editions, I think, are like a black and gold or whatever. Anyway, so the way this works. So your personal board, again, there's a lot of stuff in this
telling
game.
Me this huge box?
No, that is not the Essential Edition. No, that is not a normal. You have upgraded, my friend. You're in a whole different class.
Yeah, you're telling me.
Yeah.
Bro, I'm an upgrade. Thank you. Say that again.
Anyway, so the way it works, everybody has a personal board, and another game of Feld's previous games that this kind of feels like a little bit is Trajan. So it's a game where you have a lot of kind of mini games that you're playing on your personal board and you're doing what you're doing based on sort of like shared things that you and your opponents are going to be contributing to. So the first thing that you're doing is you're going to be picking 3 of these wooden octagonal cylinders. They're called keshis in this game. And those are going to represent the different mini games that you're going to be kind of activating on your board potentially. So if I pick the green one and the blue one and the white one, I'm going to be on my personal board placing a worker on green, blue, and white. And I'm also going to be taking a green, blue, and white cylinder and contributing it to the cylinders that everybody else is contributing. At the end, everybody's going to be throwing in 3 cylinders. We throw it in the cube tower. Again, like many of these cube towers, like in Shogun or Amerigo, some of them are going to stay in the tower, but a bunch of them are going to fall out. And then you're going to go around the table drafting the colors that have fallen out. So if, say, 2 white fall out, you can draft, if you're drafting white, you get to draft both of them. And the reason you're doing this is that when it comes to your turn, so after you've drafted all the cylinders, you have a choice to make. Now, sometimes, for example, let's say I contributed a blue cylinder and maybe it didn't fall out, or maybe another person drafted the blue cylinder before I got a chance to do it, and so therefore I didn't draft any blue cylinders. On your turn, when you're activating your own personal board, you can do one of 2 things. You can take the cylinders that you have received and add them to that section of your board, making it stronger. So if I drafted 2 blue cylinders or 2 white cylinders, I can place the 2 cylinders on the board, making that action stronger, and then take the action at an increased strength. Or I can skip that and instead not activate that spot and add 1 strength to a spot. So in the case of, let's say it's early in the game, I don't have any cylinders in the blue section, I haven't strengthened the blue section, but I placed a worker out there because I threw one in the cube tower. I can, instead of activating the blue section for 0, I can take my worker off and then add 1 to it. So in the future, when I activate blue, it's stronger. So that's basically the drafting / engine building of the game. You either draft your engine and build it, or if you're unlucky, and this is going to happen quite frequently in the game, where you aren't able to draft, you either activate the section at the strength it currently is at, or you decide to skip it and therefore just add a +1 for the future of the game. And then that's basically how the game is going to go. There are some sections that are going to be like a race element where, like, for example, I mentioned the blue section. That blue section is going to be a race down this river section of the board where the strength of your blue is going to be how many spots you move up the river track. There's going to be a section where you're going to exchange however strong you are in that color for a set collection aspect. So there's like, if I have 2 or 3 orange and there's a recipe that requires some orange, some purple, whatever, I can activate that section to do recipe fulfillment. There's another section where you're going to be getting resources. So depending on the strength you are in a certain color, you're going to get that many resources. So there's different things. There's one that you're going to be getting these tiles that are going to be giving you powers, either one-time powers or passive abilities. And again, you're spending the strength you have in that color in order to get these tiles that are going to give you either one-time benefits or passive benefits. And that's going to be how the game works throughout the course of the game, with all these things either directly giving you points or giving you an ability to get more points later, strengthening your ability to score points in the future. So what is good about this? Well, one thing I'll say is that when we set this game up, again, and this took for even the lowly Essential Edition, not Callan's Super Deluxe Edition, that we set up, there's a lot. And there's a lot of setup involved. It's not just like throw the components here, throw the components. There is some separating and doing that kind of stuff. And I was concerned with, as kind of busy and as component rich as this game was, that the rules and like trying to keep everything in hand, all these mini games, was going to be quite complicated. I'm happy to say that once you start playing, as in most games, I think, once you start going, that part is not as big of a deal, and the game itself is much simpler than the look of it might make you think. There's also something satisfying about the way that the engine builds. Again, at the beginning of the game, you are going to be passing a number of times in order to sort of build up the engine, and even when you draft these cylinders and are able to take actions, they're usually strength 1, strength 2 if you're lucky, and they're not really doing that much. You don't really see that many gains on your personal board or whatever track you're moving up. As you might expect, later in the third and final round, these actions now are strength 7, strength 8, and you're really doing a lot when you take these actions, and that's sort of a satisfying feeling to it. I've mentioned before, I'm a sucker for any game that has a cube tower. I love the cube tower mechanism where you pretty much know what cubes are coming out, but you don't know for sure. I think this game felt like it caught about 90% of the cubes, so you kind of could plan ahead. You kind of had an idea what was going to happen, but not always, and that was enough of a variance or variety to get me interested. Speaking of variety, and this is something I can't really touch on too much, like I think with many of these Queen games, when they were originally released, again, these are games that are pre-existing in this case I'm talking about. Queen was known for having, I guess they're called Queenies, which were like these promos, and I think a lot of these re-implementations kind of like throw the promos into the game, and so you could play with them or not. Marrakesh has a bunch of these expansion mini promos that are with the game. I've not played with them, so I can't speak to that, but if you're interested in a game that has a lot of like expansions or whatever, or variants, they're all in there. I, again, did not play with them. So that's all the stuff that worked in general. What I didn't like, I kind of have spoken about this, the sprawl. Like, I'm not a person who necessarily cares too much about how long a game takes to set up or tear down. This exceeded the threshold where I started to care. Like, this was like kind of a lot to deal with. I'm sure if we had like maximized the efficiency of how this game was originally packed up, it would shave some time, but like not too much. I think you're going to be spending some time building it up. And for a game that is not as like grandiose as maybe like the setup makes it look like, that was sort of a bummer. It's not a killer, but it was kind of a bummer. Kellen spoke about iconography issues with Greylune. I will say that there's a lot of iconography in Marrakesh, and there's like variations to icons that appear more than once that I thought was like confusing. We found ourselves definitely reaching for the rulebook quite a bit. So that was, again, not a non-starter, not a killer in terms of recommending or not recommending the game, but again, this is something that we found, I'm sure, again, in multiple plays that would not be as much of an issue, but there are a lot of tiles that you'll never see in a game of Marrakesh, and I gotta believe that like it will take a good 2 or 3 games to really internalize all the iconography. At least that would be my guess. And the final thing that was kind of a drawback a little bit to this game is, because there are a lot of these little bitty choices every time, I think this is a game that analysis paralysis sufferers are going to have trouble with, because there's a lot of like, should I do this? Because this is worth 4 points, and this is worth 3 points, and this is worth 2 points. But if I do this, if I chain these together, it's potentially worth 6 points. And so there's that kind of potential freezing up that players may feel. All that said, I know this sounds like a generally negative review of the game. I was, at the end of it, much more pleasantly surprised by how much I enjoyed Marrakesh than I thought. Again, there's a lot of setup. There's a lot of like, oh my God, this game is going to have a lot of rules because of like all these mini games you're doing. But it does flow much smoother than you might think, again, at the beginning. I love the cube tower. Even this engine building, again, does feel very satisfying at the end. I think all the positives overcame the negatives. I will say that I don't think this is like an upper echelon tier Feld for me. It's probably just short of that. It's definitely not like a bottom level. It's not like a game that I wouldn't want to play again, especially now that I've played it and I kind of know what's going on. But just, yeah, a solid, if you're a fan of point salads, like if you're a fan of that version of Feld, this is going to be like feeling very much kitchen sinky in a good way, I think, to you. So if you like those kind of games, if you like Trajan, if you like, I'm trying to think of like Bora Bora, those kind of games, Castles of Burgundy, even there's some of that. I think Marrakesh is a solid recommendation for those. If you want like a unique Euro, then maybe not as much, but it is done well. It is a Feld done well. It's just, I don't think like among his
Why
very
did
best.
I buy this, Mark?
Yeah, I don't know. You've turned on Feld though, right? You've gone
I
pro
feel
Feld.
like I did him dirty back in the day.
Yeah,
in the days of the podcast. So I'm like coming clean. And Marrakesh is like, first of all, Queen Games is like the worst board game publisher. So like we can just start right there. But like Marrakesh was like a new Feld that was getting a lot of love. So I was like, oh, I want to check it out. But then there's like 17 versions of it, and I don't even know which version of it I have.
I can't say I know either. Even having looked at yours, I'm not sure.
But this Kelshi draft part of it Do you sense that you could take that? Every review I'm reading and what you're talking about says that that's like the fun, best part. Could you like take that and port it to the 1 hour version that I would like?
Oh yeah,
Let's call
sure. For sure. Yeah,
Marrakesh Simple Edition. Clean
Yeah,
game?
I mean,
look, you want to sell a 17th version of the game, I'll buy it.
Right,
Marrakesh Simple Edition.
yeah, I think you definitely could. I mean, it would be like a game where the whole thing was the Cube Tower, and I could definitely see that working for sure. And I've got to say, even though I think I know where you're at in terms of like coming back around on Feld, I have the feeling that this would be a little too point salady, a little too much in terms of like all these mini games and all these little things, that I don't think this is kind of like the Feld that you're going to, I think you'd appreciate like how solidly it's constructed, but it's just like, even though you've come around a little bit on Feld point salads, this is like a little extreme, I think. And I don't think this would be necessarily one that you would love, but it is, again, it's a solid game for sure.
It's like, I feel like if Daniel had it set up somewhere,
Sure,
and I just popped in at a convention and played for 2.5 hours, I'd be like, oh, that was fun.
Yeah,
and
right.
then not realize the 1 hour that it took to unbox and get there. Or whatever.
Right, yeah.
You see that he's got In the Year of the Dragon redo coming out?
Just saw that for the first time.
Yeah.
It really annoyed me because I would have backed that but I was so like,
No, you can't back a Queen Games game.
well, I agree with you, and that's part of the problem. I was so used to just ignoring every single thing that Queen announced, but I would be in for it In the Year of the Dragon for sure.
So wait, what's your gripe with Queen? Is it the whole thing where they have these games printed and they're using Kickstarter as like an ordering system?
Yeah, I mean, that's my problem, at least.
Yeah.
Like, they're not new games. They're using Kickstarter in the worst possible way.
Sure,
So they're
yeah.
an established publisher to re-release new deluxe versions of old games.
Right.
And then they just keep making more versions of the same game with different box covers. And none of these like new additions on the face of them are just like clear visual upgrades in comparison to what other folks are doing. It's like a certain style, and I don't think they look like terrible. But you know, when the like Bruges redo, there was not many games I'd be more excited about seeing like a new imprint version. You know what I mean? And like imagine what could be done like Greylune style from Spirium to Greylune, and then looking at, you know, Hamburg. I'm like, is this an upgrade? Like, if I have to say, is this an upgrade? Question mark. Like, that's not great for me.
Yeah, I will say that one thing that I always think about with Queen Games that I do like a lot is their rule books. I think they do some of the clearest rule books of any game. Like whenever I play a Queen game that I haven't played before, I'm confident that I'll be able to get through the rules, understanding everything. So, but your negative aspects are definitely taken. They definitely make sense. So that is Marrakesh by Stefan Feld and Queen Games.
And now moving on to today's feature topic that Mark and Neelan don't even yet know what it is, but that's how you get to the bottom of investigative journalism, and you have the best content, you know, content with a capital C, because that's what we provide you, the listeners. Capital C content. Okay, I want to present a couple of exhibits for you guys to sort of react to. There's been a lot of talk online and in podcasting and in the news about the rise of board gaming, sort of. And when I say board gaming, I mean chess, backgammon, and Mahjong. So a lot of people are flocking to these games IRL, and there's a bunch of different sort of hypotheses for why this is happening. People are sad. People are, you know, wanting to disconnect from the internet and wanting to do more social activities. They're wanting to like have something they can learn and focus about. You know, looking at an article right now, chess is young and hip now. You know, we saw the rise of chess specifically with like the Queen's Gambit, but no lie, like in my office right now, I've had more than 3 people come up to me and ask for my like chess.com username, assuming that I play chess with them. And I don't play chess, or I played chess as a youth, and now I don't. But I'm actually, Christina and I are trying to find a Mahjong night to go to just to try it. You know, backgammon and Mahjong both have the gambling aspect associated with them. But I had this thought, and the thought came to me yesterday while playing Greylune, and this is no knock on Greylune, but the thought was, am I the stupid one? Am I the crazy one? Which is to say,
Can I answer that question?
No, not yet. We're not done. Yeah. So, yes, So, and it was this. I spent literally an hour reading the Greylune rulebook twice. Then I got out the components because, again, it's interconnected. There's nothing in it that like we don't know. The shared infrastructure, it's bidding, it's worker placement, it's worker retrieval, it's like action selection, it's contract fulfillment, it's, you know, shared goals. All of this scaffolding, me, Neelan, and Brandon already knew, right? Like down pat.
Yeah.
And yet we haven't seen each other in a few months, and we're excited to play, and we're kind of catching up. Oh, how's life? How's work? How's your partners? You know, that sort of stuff. And the game, to whatever degree, got in the way of that. Greylune was great, but like all of these systems, like we could have just popped off like 6 games that all fulfill the same things. And so the sort of novelty-seeking aspect of board gaming like is just sort of being repackaged and resold to us over and over again. And then I look at the rise of these things like just play chess. You know, so like last week I got on Duolingo, which now has a chess module, and I'm being retaught chess. They think my ELO is 500. They know nothing about me. My ELO
Wait,
is way higher.
Duolingo?
Duolingo has chess now.
Are you being taught chess in Spanish? Like what are we
No,
talking about?
no. I'm being taught chess where it's like, it's showing me like practice routes. It's like always take a piece of higher value, and then it's like 10 puzzles in a row of like, it's like you could take the pawn or you could take the queen. Which should you take? And then you practice the repetition of like always take the queen if you can. I think I'm in the baby's lessons, and I'm hoping that the lessons actually get somewhere to me. Anyway, you know, obviously there's a question here. If you guys could just tell me what the question is. I'm curious. I'm curious if again, aside from the podcast, maybe this is a more of a reflection on my own taste. But like, how do you feel now with all these factoids that I've presented you?
I think that there is something at the heart of what you're saying, right? Which is definitely something I think we've brushed up against at times, which is, would our game nights, like from a social standpoint, would our game nights be better if we were just playing games we knew we liked over and over again? Because like, I do think that there's something that you remind me of, which thankfully wasn't the case with Greylune, but like, there's an experience we've all had where we excitedly anticipate a game. We set it up. We learn the rules for it. It takes 3 hours to play. We're not entirely sure we're playing it right. We get to the end of it. We're all kind of tired of it because maybe it's not a great game or it's just not exactly what we wanted. And then we spend 5 hours like learning and playing a game where we could have spent the same amount of time playing 2 games that we knew we liked and had a great time, you know? That is the tension of the hobby to me, right? Which is that you're trying to fulfill 2 goals, which are maybe actually in opposition to each other, you know, which is have a good time with your friends versus let's communally get over this like cognitive hill together, you know? I don't know that those 2 things are actually compatible, but then it becomes down to like, is it worth trying to satisfy both of those goals, or do we all just agree that that's what the hobby is? Like, this is what we're here to do together.
I think not only is it what the hobby is, but it is, that tension is like one of the best parts of the hobby. I think the idea that the hobby has these 2 distinct to the extent where they're almost clashing aspects to them, where there's the novelty of it versus the like tried and true, I can pull this off anytime and know that it's going to be a good thing, offers 2 distinct feelings or 2 distinct opportunities or 2 distinct experiences that are both great. And I think one thing that makes it work in both ways to me is that although, you know, we have gotten like there's tons more games released per year to the extent where there's no chance that you could play them all. I think in general, the quality of games has gone up in general. That is not a blanket statement at all. And at least gone up to the extent where if you're willing or able to curate a little bit, like listen to podcasts or read reviews or something, or listen to your friends or whatever, and can kind of like know which of the new games are going to work for you or you're going to be interesting, at least to some extent, like those novelty experiences, if you're in the mindset where you want to have a novelty board game experiences, are going to be positive. Like, it's kind of difficult for me, although I can come up with them, to come up with examples where what you're saying was a flat out negative. Like we've all played games together, be it like before I moved or at Dice Tower West, where we were anticipating a game. It took a long time to, like, for example, Heroes of Air, Sea, and Land, or whatever it's called. That was a game we were anticipating, was a long game, turned out to be, in my opinion, not great at all. In fact, bad. but was also like, I don't see that as necessarily like, could our time have been served better another way? 100%, very easily. But I still think of that experience as a good one. Even like, so like there are times where new games that I've played have been in like a bad experience where I was like, oh, I wish we had done something else. But because games are generally pretty solid and generally I kind of like know what kind of games are going to work for me and my friends, those are, I think, few and far between. So that novelty part of it still is fun. It still leads to like a fun communal thing. And then on the flip side, I have found myself playing the same games over and over again, primarily now on BGA, because I think when I get together with people that like, oh, let's try something exciting and new is like a draw, is like one of the reasons we're there, like to do that. But I've found myself playing games, again, repeatedly on BGA and have now seen the fun side of that. Now, there's not as much socializing, of course, on BGA, but it has opened up or expanded like my appreciation of that side of the hobby, of like how good games are when you play them over and over again.
Okay, so there's a couple of different rabbit holes I want to go down here because I guess because my novelty seeking has always been, at least in my mind, the pursuit of the 100 best board games, let's call it, to like keep on my shelf.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the novelty is the belief that like Love Letter can't be the best light game of this nature that I could pull out. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
yeah, of course.
Or like a trick-taking game. It's like, okay, what am I going to play with what social deduction game am I going to play with my parents? You know what I mean? And so, I made them play Cheese Thief
sure.
on our trip.
Yeah.
And it was genuinely like such a highlight of a memory because my mom was the accomplice for my dad and we all knew they were lying, but like hearing them attempt to like sort of sell this vision, like it felt bad. Me and my sister were definitely both playing a little light because we just knew. But all that to say, like I don't think Cheese Thief is better than One Night Werewolf or Insider or Werewords, and so it's a little bit like, why didn't I just play that with them?
Yeah.
And so I guess, and then the novelty of, for me, the first 10 years, and again, I don't know how many years you're in the hobby, there's an element of discovery to the novelty that was like, to me, maybe the most important. And so maybe what I'm reflecting on is that this is all just like straight pessimism.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's much discovery that has happened for me in the last 3 or 4 years. I think I could probably count on one hand the truly like, this is a game changer novelty, or in fact, I don't know that I could even count on one hand. I'm not prepped for this, so I wish I had prepped some of this, but it's like, is there a mechanism or thing that has actually been like, the novelty seeking was rewarded with like this is a new genre of board games. This is a new dominion. This is a new, I don't know. Do you see what I'm saying?
I see exactly what you're saying. Let me ask you a question that I think maybe gets at the heart of this. So listeners who I'm sure listen to every episode, listen to the last one and know that we had a big to-do about Azul being like the second best game of 2017 or whatever. Now, what sounds more appealing to you? And this is not like an accusation, but just as like a thought experiment. Us getting together, okay, and saying we're going to be playing the new Feld. There's another Feld in the City series, the new whatever, okay?
Yep.
Versus we're going to get together and play Azul. What do you find yourself more excited about? Even like with everything that a new Feld means, with like it being a Queen game, all these things that you're like, what sounds more? So for me, the answer is the Feld. Like, even though I don't know anything about it, assuming, let's say I knew something, it was like some new Feld, not a re-implementation, I feel like the novelty would be a draw. And a part of that is that I am confident that it would be a good game because it's by a designer that is established. So I would think to myself, okay, this is a new game that I don't know much about by a designer that I trust, and it's going to be kind of fun to see what's in there. Now, Azul is a game that I love, that I've played a ton of times, that I know that we all enjoy, obviously, based on what we said last week or on the last episode. And yet, Azul is a game where I've played it now quite a few times on BGA and have appreciated it a lot more. And so, like, there is that part to it. There is that, it does offer that aspect. But I do find myself more drawn, find the idea of us playing a new game more appealing. Now, maybe that's like a character flaw. Maybe they got me.
No.
Maybe the marketing has got me. But that's kind of where I'm at. And that's, again, something I appreciate about the hobby where you can get both sides of it.
I do think you're hitting on something which I also glossed over when I described that tension, right? Which is that there is also something very exciting about experiencing something new with people that you like sharing things with, right?
Even if it's bad.
Even if it's bad, exactly. It's the reason you go to a new restaurant versus going to the same places you go every time, right? Like well, I don't exactly know. I've heard this is good, but we're going to find out together whether we like this, you know? Like that is actually one of the more appealing parts of socializing to me, is sharing a new experience with people together.
Yes. I'll buy this. Okay, but Mark, your example. I don't know, and so maybe this is just another flavor of me harping on today's design trends.
Yeah.
But like, you know, even the fact that you guys play on BGA versus me, like not being at all interested or mostly not interested in playing on BGA, I feel like we haven't necessarily unpacked what that means. But my concern, like, for instance, I would much rather play an old game of like Dune or Cosmic Encounter with you guys over playing any new game, because of sort of the like, my appetite is for discovering new ways for you guys to me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly.
Like Azul has like one really good way for us to each other, like, and I love it, and it's funny, and like but I kind of know how it's gonna go, right?
Yeah.
There's gonna be groaning, there's gonna be Nealon, you know, dumping before he should, you know, like deliberately trying to screw me, but the nature of that interaction is like that pattern. I know what it is, and so it's like, where is the emergent ability to interact with you guys? And I would probably select that over new game.
That makes sense. Yeah. Those games you mentioned, Dune and Cosmic, feel like games where like there is an inherent, like almost renewable novelty, because they're kind of hard to get to the table. They are so dependent on interaction between the players that there's a novelty in there. Like I wonder if we played Dune every single time we got together, would that lessen?
Yeah, when?
And I think,
or how long it would it take?
Yeah, and I think it might not, even just because Dune is such a, like, I can feel every game of Dune being different based on what characters or what like families we've drawn and how we're playing that game and how things go. So I think those games clearly lend themselves to that. And so maybe those are like a specific special category of games, but I definitely understand what you're saying there.
Well, and Cosmic, right, has the novelty built into it with the amount of aliens that you play and see. And so maybe it's a game system, you know, versus chess, where I am playing chess now with some of my coworkers, and I'm not sure to what end. You know, like I like it and I'm enjoying it, but like, am I playing to get better at chess, or am I playing to socialize with them?
Do you think that the experiences you're having playing chess, which I assume are both about getting better and socializing, do you find that they are satisfying something that playing like lesser new board games is not? Like, have they been more rewarding experiences in some way versus like the 15th point salad Euro that you've played? Like, has it been a better experience, or has it offered something different?
I mean, chess for me I dislike because it just feels like you're waiting for someone to screw up. It's like a gotcha moment, and then like you're like, oh, I didn't see that there, oops. And this is my lack of experience with chess, certainly, and like you could be setting up those type of moves and whatnot. But I guess the question I would ask back is like, let's say I replaced half my board gaming time with Mahjong Club or Backgammon Club. Like, would that be an improvement over where I'm at right now?
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah.
My gut feeling is that no. I mean, my gut answer is it would not be, but I like, it's funny because I was just having dinner with somebody yesterday and they were talking about how Mahjong clubs have been popping up they're from Atlanta and they've been popping up in Atlanta. I think for those games, it almost feels like those games are much more a reason to get together, like the reason to get together, and kind of like they immediately get out of the way and like allow for a socialization or like an appointment where you know you're going to get to hang out with your friends, rather than being like a important reason that you're getting together, if that makes sense. Like with board games, when you're getting together, at least when you're playing new ones, that's like part of the draw. Whereas I think if you're like going to a Mahjong night or a backgammon night, if you've played it 100 times, unless you're playing like very high level where it's like you're going to tournaments, like it feels like the game is like almost incidental. It's like much less of a reason to be there than a board game night would be. You know what I mean? Does that make any sense? Like it's much less a factor or a draw. But maybe I haven't gone to them at all or enough to know that maybe I'm wrong about that.
I don't know if this is like necessarily exactly the right fit for what we're describing. But there's this thing that's like popped into my brain as we've been talking about this, which is kind of like I have a group of friends who much lighter on the board game spectrum for sure. We very rarely meet up to play games, but when we do, it's usually me bringing some medium light game and being like, hey, here's something that's in the realm of the stuff we've played, stuff like Azul, stuff like Sagrada, something like that. And then we'll often end up playing something like a light game that someone else has brought, whether it's like in the most recent session, like Monopoly Deal. Now, I haven't played Monopoly Deal, but like it's much more in the direction of like an Uno type light, silly card game, right?
It's fun.
It's great. It is actually, I was actually surprised by how much fun I had with it, to be honest. But like, I'm also someone that like, I played a lot of Monopoly growing up, so it's like, it's activating something in my brain a little bit. But anyway,
sure.
The point is we end up playing like multiple sessions of like Monopoly Deal. Like this is clearly now, everyone's in a space like, this is light and fun and I get this and we can just keep going this. Now, from my perspective, that's not ideal. Like I would rather like play a round of that, maybe play something else, go on to other games. But this clearly became kind of like the social glue that now we're talking about being excited to meet up again to play more Monopoly Deal. You know what I mean?
Nealon, are you confessing right now that you have a board game group that just meets up to play Monopoly?
Well, no. So this hasn't happened yet. But it is interesting because it's kind of in the same vein, right? Which is kind of like, yeah, it's hard to deny that was a fun thing and that could be a fun thing that we do. But like, I would very much not want that to be the thing, like the focus, like the highlights of the evening, But some of that comes from this place of kind of like elitism, snobbery, for lack of a better word. It's like, no, I want to show you guys better games. Like if you guys liked Monopoly Deal, like wait until you play this, you know what I mean? So like there is this weird, again, this push-pull between like what is actually better for like the group socially versus what is a quote-unquote good board game, right? And I don't know. I do think that's very hard, and I do think that is very specific to specific groups. Like I wouldn't even like suggest Monopoly Deal if the three of us were like getting together to play a game. But like now,
but we would have fun.
We would have fun playing it, totally. And it is now a game that I'm like, yeah, maybe I should get my own copy of Monopoly Deal for situations like this where you have like just a small group of people. Like and I that's not to say I don't have games that occupy that space. Flip 7 is probably a good example of that for me, where I would never ordinarily play or suggest Flip 7, but it is good to have games like that for these like sort of distinct like social situations. And like, I think it's weirder when they combine in ways that doesn't exactly fit what either party or one person in the group is like looking for, in this case me. But I don't know, it's hard to point to that as a bad thing, I guess.
I think there's no better way to have ended this episode than me sort of saying, should I devote more of my hobbyist board game time to chess and Go? And then Nealon confessing he's doing the same thing, but with Monopoly.
Exactly. Please come back next week when we cover all of these hot games.
Monopoly Deal influencer is Nealon. I love to see it. I think that is going to do it for our sprawling and obviously very intentional topic about board gaming, the hobbyist space, and the rise of backgammon and Mahjong. I am going to do Mahjong night with Christina, and I will report back. I tried to learn it with an app, but the app was full of like these anime girls sort of saying weird waifu stuff to me that I didn't understand. I liked it, but I didn't understand it. And that's going to do it. You can find us in all forms of social media. You can email us at boardgamebarrage@gmail.com. You can talk to us at Discord at boardgamebarrage.com/Discord. Tell us where you're at. How important is novelty to you versus tried and true systems, breadth and depth and the whole bit. Thank you so much to listening. Thank you to Heart Society for their song, What's on Your Mind, Kid. Their album still exists, but they do not. Until next time, thank you and goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
And we're still hot. Actually, it's only gotten hotter from 11 a.m. to 12. And goodbye.